Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fertility Podcast, live from Harley Street in London town. Now let me tell you, if you ever come to Harley Street and you get the train and you get off at Baker Street, for example, it's not far to walk, do know that Harley Street is a very long street because I'm heading to number 19 and I've just started at 150. And I'm running a little bit late, so I'm going to have to up the pace. Now, I am en route to one of my new podcast sponsors, who are called International Andrology. And they're a male fertility clinic. Now, it's amazing when you walk down this street. I've just walked past London Ultrasound Centre and the London Sperm Bank. I used to always think of plastic surgery when I thought about Harley Street, until I was working in the fertility world, and now I know what an important street it is for the many fertility clinics that are here. Another thing about Harley Street is you can celeb spot, or almost celeb spot. You can play looky-likers. I just saw a cut-price Julie Walters and nearly got run over by a car, and in my excitement dropped my Ray-Bans on the road as I was running across the road. And I'm going to talk to you more once I'm in, because I can hear the wind and it's not going to sound good on this mic. So I had a good look round International Andrology. Unfortunately, the doctor I was going to chat with was busy with a patient, but I will be checking in with them again to give you more insight into male fertility issues. I'm sharing blog posts about them as well. So make sure you're following me on my socials at Fertility Poddy on Twitter and Instagram, and the Fertility Podcast has a Facebook page. And here's a little bit more about International Andrology and their sponsorship of the podcast, as well as one of my other new sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by International Andrology, who specialise in diagnosing and treating male infertility. Around 50% of infertility issues are male factor, and all too often, men aren't even evaluated at the start of a fertility journey, which might result in unnecessary treatments, costs, and disappointment. International Andrology is one of the few specialist clinics in the UK offering a holistic approach to increase your chances to conceive naturally or via the IVF route. As well as treating the underlying causes of male infertility, their doctors have some of the highest success rates in microsurgical sperm retrieval. So, if you're looking for a true specialist to assist you on your fertility journey, visit london-andrology.co.uk today and do mention the Fertility Podcast. Bud fertility supplements have been created to support you in your pursuit of parenthood. Whether you're just starting out or have been trying to conceive for a while, Bud's innovative vegan formulas contain adaptogens, minerals, and vitamins proven to support vital aspects of reproductive health and function. Go to littlebud.com and use the code FP20 to receive 20% off your order. So go forth and multiply. Now, before we start this episode, which is another one within my alternative parenting season, do note that my guest does talk about her pregnancy, and I just wanted to mention that in case it's a trigger in any way to where you're at. But I hope you'll find it a really useful, as always, episode, especially if you're in a same-sex couple and you're looking to see how you're going to go about starting your family. Jo has a really brilliant explanation of why you need to make sure you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's before going on this journey and getting the advice of an expert, which is what my previous episode with Lois, the lawyer, was all about. And I will put links to that, and the details of the show notes will be at the end of this. Here we go. So I'm just heading off to another podcast interview as part of the alternative parenting series that I'm making for you, and it's a pretty grey day at the end of Jan. Good thing is my little one is at nursery. I dropped him off, jumped in the car. Traffic has been rubbish this morning. It is grey, but I'm heading to a gorgeous place called Marple, and it's a really pretty part of Stockport, to have a chat with a lady called Jo, who is in a same-sex relationship and has a little boy, and we're going to talk about her journey and some of the shit that went on, some of the issues that she had to overcome, which I'm really looking forward to finding out more, because Jo and I have been trying to talk for a little while. So off I go.
I'm Jo. I'm mum to Freddie, who is 3, who was born at the end of June 2015. I got together with my partner Jane, and we were very clear from the start that we both wanted children or a child. We're both on the same page. And sort of 2 years in, we decided that, it was time to try. Obviously, as a same-sex couple, we weren't really sure how to go about that, to be honest. We were quite naive about what we would need to do. So we decided to go along to an open evening at a clinic, a private clinic, just to kind of find out what the options were. So we did. We went along, and there was quite a few other same-sex couples at that open evening. And then at the end of that, the nurse said she would be happy to give myself, because we decided that I was the one who was going to carry a blood test just to kind of assess my fertility. So we had this blood test. I had this blood test, and to my horror, it came back that with an indicator that I had low fertility.
Right. How old were you?
38. Yeah, so kind of thought I wasn't going to be high fertility because of my age and everything I'd read in the papers and things, but it was a bit of a shock that I was at the lower end. So it was a bit like, okay, we just need to crack on with this. We can't wait any longer.
So when she said you had low fertility, was she saying you had like a low egg reserve?
It was a blood test.
AMH?
AMH,
yeah. So it was the levels to suggest.
Yeah, the levels to suggest.
Yeah.
So that was the only investigative thing I had done, which was just a pure blood test. So with that information, we decided to crack on and pay, self-fund some support, really. So through the clinic, which was, can I name the clinic?
If you want to.
Manchester Fertility, we went along and decided to go with some advice from the consultant there to just go for a straightforward IUI treatment, which we did, and then that didn't work. So we went on to have 6 of those.
So let's just, because obviously for the IUI, you need to have found some sperm. So just talk me through that process of picking your donor. Okay, well, we wanted a donor that reflected both of our characteristics. So it was a mixture of us both, I guess. What did you do? Did you write a list of your best qualities? Yeah, and it did sound like a bit of a pipe dream, this person that we wanted. But no, I think it was more around, it was important to my partner Jane that it didn't look too far away from what she looks like. But she's very different to me. I'm dark haired, she's blonde, but we both tan well, and things like that. So we just kind of went for middle ground in that respect. Because it must be an interesting one if you know, with you both being women, that it's obvious that a third party has been involved to anybody looking in, but you obviously still want to have that element of there being some similarities from an aesthetic, as well as then the background of the person. So when you were looking, because am I right in saying that the clinic will then narrow it down to a couple for you? They sent us a couple of profiles. They sent us a list of sort of physical characteristics and also something that the donor had written down, so like a personal statement, a bit about their history and their life and kind of where they're at. And that was a really good indicator around shared values and how they spoke. There was some that very clearly we read and was like, no, that's just not us. But there was some that really resonated with. Did you enjoy that process? Yes, but I think it can give you too much detail because you start to sort of, you can be easily put off, I think. And obviously... Bad grammar, Yeah, exactly. And the main thing for us was healthy, and we knew that we would instill both our personalities on this child and that we'd have an influence over that, having, bring this child up. It was helpful and it was quite fun at the beginning. And when we first went into it, we were full of hope and excitement. So every part of the process was fun and exciting. You're obviously given that information and stuff. And what other support were you seeking apart from the practical side? From an emotional point of view, were you able to talk to any of your peers done it, or were you aware of any kind of networks? We had a couple of peers and friends that we knew that had gone through the process, but they didn't live that locally and they'd sort of gone through it a few years ago, so no one. But funnily enough, just by accident, I met through a work situation somebody that was going through it exactly the same time as us, and
at the same clinic, and we ended up actually giving birth in hospital at the same time.
Wow.
Which is very weird. But we got some support through the clinic. We had some counselling around what it meant to have donor sperm and what it meant as a couple and what to expect and things like that in terms of the legalities and the anonymity element of. And it actually reassured us knowing that our child could seek out a donor at 18. We'd heard from other people that those that hadn't had that opportunity, they'd had problems with the child later in life, feeling they didn't have that choice. And the fact that they didn't have a choice made it more of a mission to try and find or understand who their donor was. So for us, it was a relief that we knew we could offer that to any child conceived under this, that they were able to contact them when they were 18.
Yeah. So IUI, we have one round that doesn't work, and so then you said you signed up for 6.
Well, we ended up keep going back, so they just didn't work, so we can go back. I think the final 2, we were supported by having some Clomid to stimulate the ovaries, and again, so we had 6 goes, and it's just heartbreaking towards the end. It was just not working for us.
What time period were we talking?
This was over about a 2-year period.
So for 2 years, there's that constant, that kind of cycle of despair.
That
there's
2-week wait.
The 2-week wait.
Yeah, it was. I didn't realise until much later on what an impact that had. I used to sort of, in that 2 weeks, was just so distracting and so awful.
You try to get on with stuff,
You do. You try to get on with stuff, but you just... And then it comes, and you're like, no, it hasn't worked for us this time. And I went on forums and I just found them really not good for my mental health, to be honest. There were just people in very different situations. I didn't recognise the people in these forums because, it wasn't the exact same circumstances under which we were going through the process. So I just found them even more isolated, actually, than helpful.
And were you able to obviously talk to each other in depth about it? And so was that your main support, the pair of you to each other? Yeah,
it was. Yeah, it brought us very close.
Was there any conversation that Jane might try?
No, because she's 7 years older than me, and just felt that, she done.
Yeah. So then did you feel that the pressure was on you, or it was just more frustration that it wasn't working?
Yeah, it's frustration, and I've never felt any pressure from anybody. Although once, Jane, absolutely not. She was just like, this is, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. But, she always gave me hope. She was always like, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Whereas my parents, because we sort of involved our parents and told them we were trying, I suddenly felt some pressure there because, the first grandchild and potentially only grandchild, because both our siblings are unable to have children. So,
And so that kind of conversation, I suppose, were they fascinated by the process you were going through as well? Were you able to kind of deflect the trying by they were learning as to how it all worked, or was it more just they were just wanting the outcome to be a success?
Yeah, just a success. I think my mum was more open to hearing about the process. My dad just didn't want to know. He really didn't want to know.
So what happened after the IUIs? What did you do?
IUIs, we sort of ran out of money, spare cash to do it. We'd just bought a house and we'd put down a big deposit, and so we just didn't have any spare cash. So we went to our GP really just to say what are the options for us, and also I wasn't feeling great after 6 goes, that I just needed some support. So our GP was wonderful. She was fantastic. She said IVF may be the next natural sort of progression in this, and I can see how we can support you in terms of the funding side of things. And it was just fortuitous really that when she explored what the priorities were for same-sex couples to access funding in our area, it was literally 6 funded. If you'd self-funded 6 treatments, you were automatically considered for funding for IVF.
For 6 goes?
No, for 2.
Right.
For 2 goes,
wow,
yeah.
Okay. That's amazing though.
So we'd already hit that point.
Okay.
So it wasn't like we had to then try and make up our 6 funded goes. We'd already done 6 self-funded goes. They hadn't worked, so we were put forward to receive some funding.
Brilliant.
And she was fantastic. She worked on a Sunday to put the application together. She emailed us throughout the process. She got it in. And then it took a while for the decision to be made, but we got confirmation that they were going to fund us for 2 rounds of IVF.
Brilliant.
So that was great.
And do you think that there is that awareness from a same-sex couple point of view that there is an eligibility for funding? Do you think people know that once, obviously, there's the parameters that you've just explained?
No, and obviously it differs in different areas. It really depends where you live and what that is all about. So, no, I don't think it's that clear.
But it's worth finding out.
Yes, absolutely.
Having that conversation. Because I think sometimes what people might do if they've gone into the clinic is not even think to go back to their GP. Because you could have quite easily said to the clinic, well, what next? And they would have said IVF, and then you would have tried to find the money. But it's to give yourself that moment to stop and go back and see whether you can get the support was really good.
What happened from them was that we changed clinic because we were funded, but there was set clinics that we could access. So we then moved over to Manchester Fertility, and so very different experience. Manchester Fertility is very kind of slick, and I'm not saying that as a most positive thing. I found it very kind of commercial and transactional, and you go in, you pay for your treatment at the desk, and then you go and sit down and go and have your treatment. Whereas care, it's a crumbly old building in Manchester, but the care element of it is wonderful. It feels like really comfortable, really homely, and the staff and the consultant were just brilliant. Felt very relaxed in their care and talked us through the process really clearly, and was really good experience clinically.
And that happened by chance, that you then moved, didn't it, where you found? Okay.
Yeah.
So you then embark on first round of IVF?
Yeah. Yeah, that was...
How had you given yourself any time where you just didn't do anything in between? Obviously, you have to have the waiting period.
Yeah.
You told that you're eligible, and then the process starts. Did you just go with it when you knew that you were eligible, it was going to happen, or did you stall it a bit?
No, we just, because it naturally took a while because
so
of the decision. So yeah, I mean, I was desperate to get going again, because I was just conscious of time ticking away, and me getting older.
So you're 40 at this point when you had the treatment?
Oh no, just before my 40th. So we went down the IVF route with donor sperm, so we had to change sperm donors because we went with a different clinic. They had a very different approach to sperm donor. There wasn't any personal profile that someone had written. It was just literally basic characteristics, which we were quite happy with.
So there's no pictures? Did you get any pictures of them as a kid or anything like that?
No.
Right, okay.
No.
So you choose your donor, and then you had success with that first round?
Yeah, so not many eggs, and only one survived the window.
Yeah.
So that was just completely... That was really hard, those few days where we knew we had X amount of eggs, and then waiting to see which ones kind of to then be implanted. So I remember I was driving in the car, and the phone rang on the Bluetooth, and it was the clinic, and she kind of said to me, we've got one, others have not made it, but we've got one, and it's a good one. And I was just crying in the car, just sobbing, going, for 2 reasons. One, I had a good strong egg, but the other one was like, we've only got one. And she said to me, it only takes one. Yeah. But still, I was really nervous about it. Yeah. So I went in, we both went in and had the egg transferred, and then we went off to Cornwall for a week, which was a really good distraction. Yeah. Just to be by the sea and just get some fresh air.
I went to the sea during that period.
Yeah, and it was good for us, and we went away with my mum and dad. It was very funny because we got down there, my mum and dad were like, oh, why are you so late? And we said, well, we've been to the clinic this morning because it was ready to transfer, and then it was a great holiday, and then got back, and then was just in agony for a week, thinking, I just want to know. Yeah. And then we did the test. And it was very, very faint line, and we thought we're not pregnant. Oh. And we phoned the clinic, and he said, we don't think it's worked. It's a really faint line. They said, there's a line there. We said, yeah. And he said, it's worked. It's
Can't believe
but
it.
just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
No, couldn't believe it. It was amazing. Best feeling in the world.
Yes. Okay. So you have success.
Yes.
And you're then pregnant. Good pregnancy?
Yeah, fairly good. Not bad at all. GP experience brilliant. GP was just, the midwifery there was fantastic. Really disappointed when we went into hospital situation,
right?
Particularly because I had a couple of bleeds and things. But your green papers, the green book.
Yeah.
It says on the front of it, it's got all your details, and it says at the bottom something about your partner.
Yeah.
And a name, and they just didn't read it. So I'd walk into an appointment within the hospital with Jane, my partner, and they just assumed it was a friend. Even one said, "Is this your mum?"
Right.
It was just awful.
Wow,
I kept having to come out all the time.
So there's a real lack of awareness and understanding.
Yeah. There's always this assumption that you're part of a...
Which is so dated.
Yeah.
Because I know from some of the conversations I've had that even solo women who are going to, have a family on their own have found that they're still referred to as single women.
Yeah.
And they've chosen to do this, so they're not single. There wasn't someone that's left them.
No.
And so there's obviously a lot more understanding and training probably about the language that's used. I thought you were going to say about the fact that you'd conceived through fertility treatment, because I think there's still issues around how women who have conceived having had infertility are spoken to, because they might be slightly more neurotic, through their pregnancy. And I know there's an amazing midwife, and more are kind of coming through to want to help educate midwives in the language, especially the lady I'm talking about had her own infertility and had to step away from her midwifery to deal with it, to then come back, but is adamant to try and help that understanding.
Yeah.
So I thought you were going to say that, but that's a whole nother thing to consider. So, and were you finding that when you'd come out, that then the conversation would change, or would there then be that kind of awkwardness? Or...
They just feel awkward, and
right.
You want to walk into these appointments because there's obviously a level of anxiety about giving birth anyway, and your pregnancy, and then you're sort of having to preempt. In the end, I just used to burst in and say, "Hi, this is my partner Jane," just to stop any of that awkwardness, just to kind of preempt it. But I shouldn't be thinking about that. I should just be walking in and feeling cared for. And
so that was a tinge of kind of frustration and sadness, really, about that acceptance, isn't it, along the way?
Yeah.
Was that kind of a constant thing, or were there occasions where people did read the notes? And
there was never any good examples. I mean,
it's a shame.
Yeah, there's always that slight awkwardness or slight just having to, spell it out as to what the situation was. Okay. Yeah, because you get put through so many different. I mean, I never had a consistent sort of midwife or any consistency in that respect.
Yeah.
From the moment I presented myself at the GP as pregnant to the point of giving birth. Even during my birth, there was change of shifts and things like that of people. So there's always this revolving door of people. So
that's annoying.
Yeah.
Did you have a positive labour experience?
No, it was quite a traumatic birth. So
right.
I ended up having a forceps delivery.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of damage done. So yeah, I ended up and. So there was that, and then we were in hospital, a couple of days, just while I got back on my feet. But then on discharge, paediatric nurse came around just to check on Freddie, and discovered a rash on him. So he had an infection.
Right.
So he had to be put he had to have a cannula, which was pretty awful, and put on antibiotics. So we ended up in hospital for a week.
Right.
Which was great to get him better, but also it was actually good for me. We just hired a room, and so we had some privacy, and it just helped me get better and actually nail the breastfeeding side of things, because I was struggling at first, and because I was in for a week, that the nurses and midwives really helped me with that.
Okay,
so that was great.
Is there anything in a same-sex relationship where, so Jane's obviously around you with your hormones and getting more pregnant, is there anything, did her body want to kind of
produce, is there any link or any science about if a woman is with a woman, in a relationship, and one woman is going to have a baby, does anything happen? Because how they say about how women's cycles get in alignment and stuff. And I just wondered if there's any, she didn't experience giving any milk or anything.
No, she didn't actually.
I doubt it. I think the hormones have to be so related to. I just wondered if there was anything from the kind of environment, because that'd be quite.
Yeah, but it was good. I mean, she did sort of skin on skin when Freddie was born with him, which was lovely, because they were really good when we went into theatre. She saw Freddie before me because I was all sort of gowned up, out of it. But we were brilliant with her, and she had time with him before I did, really, which is lovely.
So Freddie gets better, and you get better, and you come home.
Yeah.
And so I know that there was an issue. I know that there was an issue from a legal point of view. So at what point, what has to happen then? Because are you in a civil partnership, or are you just...
We're not, no. So we're not in a civil partnership. So what happened when we went through fertility treatment, way before we even start treatment, you have to fill out forms which consent that I, as the one carrying the child, consent to Jane being... recognised as a legal parent, and the same for Jane, that she recognises herself as a legal parent, which is exactly what we wanted. And you have some counselling around that, and then you fill out some forms. So we did all of that, and that was great. We'd done that at Manchester Fertility Services as well, obviously, before we started treatment there, and then we repeated that process at Care Fertility. And then, so that was that, forgot all about it, cracked on with it, had Freddie, all great, just into family life, and, brilliant. We were so happy. And then we went on holiday with Freddie, and we got a call whilst on holiday off the consultant from Care Fertility saying that he'd sent some forms. There'd just been a little bit of an admin mix-up. He'd sent some forms for us to complete when we should return from holiday, if we wouldn't mind just completing them and returning them. Then shortly followed by another call a couple of days later saying, actually, we've given you the wrong advice there. When these letters come, these forms come, just throw them away. Don't worry about them. It's all fine. So we got back off holiday, and you've got a pile of post, and we saw this thing from Care Fertility, just threw it up and just tore it up and threw it out without even reading it, because you're just busy, you got a little
one. And you trusted them?
Yeah, you trust them. And then we got another letter, again a letter, no telephone call, to say that there'd been an audit of consent forms throughout the care services, and it had been discovered that a number of these consent forms hadn't been completed correctly. Right. And it had been, and because it hadn't been completed correctly, and they have to be done before any treatment commences or before any child is born, that there's some questioning over people's legal parentage, because it'd been tested in court. There was a couple used sperm donor, split up. There was a custody issue. One of the parents, thought they were the legal parent, went for custody, and they weren't the legal parent. So they decided to do an audit, and our forms have been picked up as not being completed correctly.
Right.
So there was a question over Jane's legal parent status, which was just devastating for us, because we felt so insecure and vulnerable. Because if I got knocked over by a bus the next day, what would happen to Freddie? Yeah. And we were just really shocked. And this is in a letter. So this letter said that this was a case. Should we need to seek any legal advice, that the clinic would be happy to pay for that? And we thought, well, yes, absolutely, we should.
Yeah. So they'd made a mistake.
They'd made a mistake. So what had happened was there were some things that hadn't been filled out correctly.
By them or
by
them.
You?
Right.
But there was also bits that we'd omitted to do, but they'd not been double checked. Yeah. And
you wouldn't to know.
You're not familiar with these forms. You're signing them at a really emotional time.
Yeah.
You expect the clinic to come back to you if there's any issues. They just disappear, and you think that's it.
Yeah.
They're done.
Yeah.
And you have faith in that's happened. So we were really shocked by this, and then we actually, first thing you do is Google, and we start to read about it, and it actually did hit the press sometime before this, that Sir James Mumby, who's the head of the family division within the High Court, had had a couple of cases come to him, and he's the one that had triggered the audit. So they should have done the audit well before even we'd started treatment. So this was an issue that they hadn't dealt with quickly.
Yeah.
And it should have been picked up.
So all clinics should have done an audit, not just the one you're talking about.
All of them.
Yeah.
So the body that audits them, is it the fertility?
HFEA.
Yeah, HFEA. They were the ones that doing the audits. And they'd already told the clinic that there was lots of mistakes and issues. I think they did a kind of, a sample audit, and then they said you need to do a full audit, because what it's telling us is that there's probably more parents that have got this issue. So we were then handed over to a lawyer down in London in Shoreditch, who specialises in this and had taken a couple of cases to the High Court. So we went to meet her, and she was saying that based on the paperwork, it's not clear whether Jane is a legal parent, and there's a big suggestion. Well, she basically, her advice was, I suggest you go to get a parental order, and you can only get those by the High Court.
Gosh.
So, and then there was talk around potentially Freddie having some needing, and he was like 1.
Yeah.
Him potentially being given a guardian to support him through this process and all this kind of stuff. It was just awful. We were devastated. We were so upset and anxious about it all. And Gemma, our lawyer, said, the fact is that, that those forms aren't filled out correctly. You can't retrospectively do them. So, but it does show intent from both of you that you did sign up to this.
Yeah.
So, but I just think for further protection, if anything does happen, then, you do need to get this. So we went down that route. We built a case, and we actually went to the High Court.
Gosh.
We had to get sign off from the Secretary of State and all that kind of stuff.
And what kind of time frame did that take?
It took months. We went to the High Court, and so James Mumby presided over it and granted Jane the legal order, which sits on a file. It's not a public record. So, because we'd gone after Freddie was born straight to the register his birth and named Jane quite rightly as we intended that she was the legal parent. So the fact we'd done all of that, and they were great, the registry. That was a good experience, to be honest.
Yeah.
We didn't feel like the only gays in the village when we went to the...
So during the period of time where you're getting your case together and what have you, and obviously there's no imminent threat other than, like you said, you could get hit by a bus. That's the main... There wasn't any outside talk of Freddie being taken away or anything?
No.
It was just
but there's this whole grey area around. There was lots of people giving bad advice. The clinics were giving bad advice.
Right.
One suggestion to us was that Jane might have to adopt Freddie.
I was going to ask you about that,
which
because
is
I've heard they have to have,
different.
And once they're
scenario.
on that adoption register, then whilst the parental order's coming through, I've heard about that before.
And that's not. It was just, and people had gone down that route, and they didn't have to.
And I don't think you come off it. I think once a child's on the adoption register, it stays.
And that's a different status and label, and it's just very confusing. We were very confused. We were given really poor advice the only time we got good advice was when we got a specialist lawyer on it, and she told us exactly what we needed to do. But there's just a lot of anxiety. Jane felt really without status because she didn't feel legally protected during that time.
Yeah.
And which is really, heartbreaking because we've gone through this.
And unnecessary.
And unnecessary, absolutely. Admin error, ridiculous. The clinic weren't great. And whilst we had amazing care, it was really disappointing and a shame that due process hadn't been followed just on the admin side. And it was the director responsible for that area of the work was actually our consultant, so clinically and emotionally he was great, but then he ended up resigning he was due to retire, I think.
Right, okay. So in hindsight, because I, as part of this series, have spoken with a lawyer who quite clearly says that her advice is if you are looking to start your family in an alternative way, to seek legal advice at the start so that you've covered all eventualities. Would that be your advice?
Yeah, it would be, and I worry about whether that would, again, it's a cost thing, isn't it? So I just is an additional cost.
Yeah.
I just wonder if there's just some clear guidelines as to things that you should be preempting or checking, just to empower you more in that process. Just some advice, really, you know, how important these things are.
Yeah. Because we actually discussed issues around forms being incorrectly completed, and I wonder how commonplace it is. Obviously the audit was done and a result was found that more care needs to be taken, so it'd be interesting then to see whether the clinics do set it out a bit more clearly from the outset. As far as because the consent forms are quite epic, aren't they? You know, you have to, and I remember having a chat and the nurse was like going chat. We weren't listening to any of it, and when we went through them, it was pretty much sign. Kind of like you say, you're overwhelmed with the whole emotional side of it. Yeah. But you just don't in any way assume that there's going to be an error or something missed.
No.
I suppose it's having that insight that there could be, and so to double check is something that we could maybe try and get people thinking about more. Definitely.
I think if when you go into it, just be aware that not to trust everything, and you've got to put some trust in the system and the process. But I think certainly around form filling, and because it went on for months. This, you know, we were up and down to London. You know, and sitting in the High Court is terrifying. Yeah. And we had to send pictures of Freddie to him. We had to sort of write statements and go back over how we got together. And
so it's almost like you're guilty of something when you're not.
Having to prove that we both wanted this child and that we both wanted legal sort of status over the child. So, it was just... sending pictures and things of our son to a stranger at the High Court was just not really in our... Yeah.
So from start to finish, you said he was 1 at the time when you were away and got the call. Can you remember when it was all resolved?
I think it's probably about 12 months in the end.
So another year.
Yeah.
So the first 2 years of his life are kind of...
just
so leaning towards how he came to be because of kind of errors.
Yeah. And then it's still... There was, when we went to the court, obviously Jane got the parental order, which is great, but then there was a further hearing of the just to sort of hold them to account, the clinics.
Right.
So we were sort of waiting for the outcome of that, and then there was, you know, obviously because James Mumby didn't want them just to get away with it. He wanted to sort of put it in the sort of public domain that they'd failed people.
So you just have to raise then make them accountable. Yeah.
I mean, we got a verbal apology from the clinic director at the High Court. That was it. And all we wanted was that bit of paper, really, just to make sure, just get on with our lives, really.
So as far as Freddie now, and the conversations you have with him about how he came to be, because again, as part of this series, I've put the emphasis on the importance of telling.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Where are you at with his story? Do you talk about it now? Is it something you're thinking about?
We talk about it, and we've got a book that we got from the Donor Conception Network. And we've got other books that we've got, largely American, to be honest. So, so it referenced mom, but mom and mummy. But we introduce it, but we don't. He's not asking any questions as such. So, and our philosophy is that kids want to know the truth. Yeah. And that he will get the truth. Yeah. But I would love some more support around that. Yeah. I'm not sure where to get it from. I mean, I know the donor network's there. Yeah. I've looked online. I don't know how active it is. I don't know whether there's any local groups. I was interested to hear what you said earlier before we started this around the other person that you're speaking to around that storytelling and that how you do that and when and but definitely I would want more information on that.
Well, because you talk about Jana and her book, and one of the things that she has is kind of exercises that you can do to kind of explore the telling, and if there are any other people that need to be told, you know, that, I mean, it sounds, I'm sure that your family are all kind of in the know, but as Freddie grows up, if there are other people, I think it kind of covers all of that. So I'll send you that book because it'd be interesting for you to have a look at. But it'd be interesting to find out from when we shared the story as to whether people do feel that there is enough support from a UK point of view. I know that there is quite a lot, and I know that the DCM are trying to have more content.
Right.
I don't know about the support groups, but that's something that I can look into and find out more. But apart from the legal side and the telling the truth, any other advice that you'd give to anybody thinking of going down this route in a similar way as you?
Having a good relationship, I think just going to your GP first off, really, when you embark on this is probably a good one, just to say, this is where I'm starting, rather than go straight directly to a private clinic, because it does feel, you don't get that rounded conversation around how you're feeling about it, and your GP's your GP, and hopefully they'll be as supportive and as helpful as mine. But I think going there first and saying, this is what we're doing, we've got some funding here ourselves to privately fund some, but should that not work, then what are the options, so you don't feel that you're sort of beholden to the clinic, I guess. So you're just a bit more informed about it. I think that's probably the main thing, because we didn't do that, and it was only at crisis point where we went, okay, let's speak to our GP. And
that's a good tip.
And that was a turning point for us, really.
And when you said you went to an open evening at that first clinic, did you go to a few open evenings, or did you just find one and go to one and then start?
We just went to that one, we liked the feeling of it, and just got
cracking.
Yeah.
I think the biggest kind of takeaway from all of this is to just not be afraid to ask questions along the way.
I think that's it,
because it is so overwhelming, and it's the common kind of theme with dealing with this, whether you've struggled or whether you're just starting your family out in an alternative way. It's the overwhelm, and being able to have those free conversations. It's really important.
And I think there's a sense of panic, I think, and we just probably could have done a bit more shopping around and sort of visited a few different clinics and kind of assessed the vibe off the people within them. I think we should have probably gone to Manchester Fertility and then gone to Care and just done a bit of compare and contrast, because I do definitely, my experience was much better from a clinical point of view within Care than it felt at the other one. But people have different experiences and they have different feelings around things, so I think just to present yourself into these places and just chat to some of the staff there and see if there's how you, because keeping your stress levels down is major.
Definitely.
Is really helpful for any fertility treatment, so finding the right environment and the right people is key. So I would definitely, if I could go back, probably have done more of that research and legwork a bit more before I embarked upon it. But we kind of got into it, and then it just kind of went into free flow. Oh, we've done one here, we'll do another here because this is where we go. And then next minute you've done 6 goes.
But you're not alone in that. I mean, it's a kind of addiction. It's a kind of cycle of, it's easier to stay, we'll just get on with it, we just want this outcome. You blinkered on the end goal. I talk to lots of people who talk about the same thing, and the importance is really that this is your story, this is your kind of time to stop if you need to, but it's hard, it's really hard, and I think that's where the emotional support comes in. And talked about your mental health to a point, in that you need to know the tools that you can, because it sounds like you were still doing things, going on holiday and enjoying yourself along the way, not obviously partying crazily, but sadly too many people stop all of that because they're so at least there was still that kind of balance, I think, from what you've described. And I know obviously you're busy working as well, so
I think, and Jane was really good at distracting me and getting me to do things, because I would have quite happily have just sat in a room until and just tried everything and shut myself away.
Did it impact on your work? Did you find?
It did. I was distracted. Particularly that 2-week wait. I was just like, I had to readjust my diary. I was sort of cancelling things and postponing things because, I was highly anxious.
But that self-care is vital, which you're completely right to have done. As well. You've got to manage it somehow, otherwise you go mental.
Exactly. And I can't speak for Jane, but I do. And we've not really massively talked about it, but I think there should be more support for partners around that whole pregnancy and the fertility side of things, because I'm sure she had a miserable time as well. You know, we cried together a lot.
Yeah.
But there isn't that support there.
Yeah, because the emphasis is on you, because
Yeah.
you're the one physically going through it. Yeah.
I mean, she was great. She, she injected me, which took great pleasure in. And when I had to take one, which was like the middle of the night, and she was actually working away in London at the time. I think it was the final one, and it just happened that it was 3 a.m. and I had to do it. And she actually phoned me, so I wasn't sat on the bathroom floor on my own doing it. So it was there for me, so that was cool. But yeah I do wonder what her experience was.
Because I know even like my other half felt pretty redundant. We'd name our injections when you had to do the 2.
Yeah.
We'd kind of have a little game of coming up with like movie kind of characters that were pairs to name them. And he didn't inject me. I was kind of doing it, but I know we felt pretty redundant, and he was pretty ignored. I mean, you talk about your experience. The men in a heterosexual relationship are often just even not spoken to. I mean, there's the presumption put on in a same-sex relationship, and then they just ignored nature. So I don't think the clinics have got the balance at all right, sadly, of how it's more often than not 2 people are involved. Obviously, there's solo women, but I don't know why that happens. It's a real oversight, and again unnecessary. So.
And the other thing is, I just wonder if there's anything for the grandparents or wider family around it as well. Kind of, what are their messaging to their friends and their peer group around how this child is conceived? Because I don't know how my parents sort of talked about it to their friends, but obviously to close friends, I think, and family, they all knew that Jade and I were same-sex relationship and stuff like that, but generally more broadly. And also I'd be interested in how they can help Freddie with some of the questions, because he may not always ask us.
Yeah.
He may go to them as his confidants and ask them about things, and I want them to feel comfortable with that messaging as well.
Yeah, it's constant learning, and also when they're older as well, if there's other questions. And have you asked your parents what they say?
We haven't had that conversation yet. No, we're due to, I think, because
good to know.
Yeah,
that kind of toolkit. Thank you for sharing the story.
What to make of that then? It'd be great to hear your feedback, especially if you've got any comments about some of the points that Jo raised, or maybe you found support in some of the areas Jo was saying she'd like to know what kind of support there was available if you're in a same-sex couple, for the grandparents, for your family. Do get in touch, Natalie at thefertilitypodcast.com. And my next episode as part of this alternative parenting series is with 2 gay dads, Michael and Wes. So I'll be sharing their story of their surrogacy journey next week. Thank you as always for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it, and until the next time.